it wasn't just thinking about getting back to a win. It was also understanding what type of fighter we were going against, competing against a guy that was extremely tough. I hit him with a bunch of jabs. I hit him with a jab cross. I hit him with a lot of heavy punches, and he just kept coming forward, and we were expecting that. So the whole idea of just winning wasn't just because, we're on a losing streak, we got to get back. It was also just knowing that the dude's not going to let you finish him. He's not going to make it that easy. We got 3 rounds. Let's just keep working, and get the W. So yeah, it was a couple of different factors.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 36 of Combat Docket Radio. As always, this is Kurt and Ben here to bring you all the action going on in the MMA world this week. How you doing, Ben?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Nice sunny day outside today. Ready to talk about some MMA.
Yeah, it's a beautiful morning. Real quick, are you a soccer fan? Are you following this World Cup?
I'm not. That doesn't mean and we'll talk about this again. I'm going on vacation next week, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to spend every day drinking, watching soccer.
Yeah.
But I have not watched a second of it yet.
So this is a great morning. I'm off work. I actually went with a beer over a coffee. I have this Mexico-Sweden game on. I've been working a lot of mornings, so I haven't caught a lot of the games live, but I love the World Cup. I'm not a big soccer fan. Not that I'm not a big fan. I just don't follow all those leagues, like I do the NBA or NFL or MLB. But, man, I get up for the World Cup. I love it.
How can you not? I think I'm probably the same way. Like I said, I haven't watched a second of it yet, but that's not necessarily because I don't want to. It's just, I haven't gotten around to it. But I feel like if you're with a group of people watching some random-ass countries play, day drinking, nothing beats that. Could you imagine if MMA had something like that, like every 4 years, just like all the best fighters in the world fought each other, like in the middle of the fucking day? I'd lose my mind.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. It sucks that the U.S. isn't in the World Cup. It's such a bummer.
I feel like most Americans now are rooting for Mexico. I could be wrong. Or they just pick a random team, right? Like England or Switzerland or whatever.
Mexico's playing Sweden right now. I'm personally rooting for Portugal. I like Ronaldo. Guy's a beast.
I'll need somebody to root for next week. So
right. Go Portugal, I guess. Anyways, so we started off the show with a couple bits from Will Brooks. PFL 2 happened this past Thursday. In the main event, Will Brooks got back on the right track. He scored a big win over Luis Firmino. And it was good to see Will Brooks get back on the winning track, man. I like Will Brooks a lot. I think he has a really good positive outlook on his career and what's happened. I mean, he was a huge signing at the time. Obviously former Bellator champ, holds 2 wins over Michael Chandler. People are quick to forget that. And for whatever reason, it just did not line up for him in the UFC. It was good to see him get back on the winning track. He looked good in his fight. And like I said, man, I like his attitude. I like his outlook on everything.
I'm happy that he got the win. And I saw a lot of people kind of writing him off because it was not an overwhelming win. But I kind of feel like those people maybe have not seen Will Brooks fight before. Like he's never been like a great finisher. He's a very solid, kind of smart, measured fighter. And that's exactly what we saw here. I don't want to say he looked phenomenal because he did get hit a little bit against Firmino here. But there was never a part of the fight where I felt like Will Brooks was losing, which is really his MO, is to just kind of play it very smart. He's a good kickboxer and a very good like wrestler, takedown defender and takedown artist. But yeah, it was good to see him get the win in Chicago nonetheless, hometown.
That was good for him. How do you see him stacking up against the rest of the 155-pound division? Do you think he's the favorite there?
It's hard to tell because PFL I feel like is all over the place. Who else is at lightweight? We saw Brian Foster look awesome, by the way, in that win with the knockout over Ramsey Najem.
Chris Wade looked pretty terrible, honestly.
Yeah, who was a huge favorite. I thought Jason High was going to win. I thought Jason High was on his way to winning until we'll talk about his loss. It's hard to pick many other lightweights in PFL above Will Brooks, especially naming the guys like both you and I think thought Chris Wade was going to be a killer in the PFL, and he did not look good. I thought Jason High would be able to compete. He lost, however questionable that may be. I don't know how the points are all going to shake out. I assume he's going to make it to the playoffs. Like anybody that gets at least one win, I think the way PFL is doing their points will get to the quote-unquote playoffs. And then once you're there, I don't think the points matter anymore. It's just win and move on, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Brings me to my next question. What's your opinion on like the rebranded PFL? It looks totally different than WSOF. Obviously, they have a different rule set. Or not a different rule set, like a different structure. I personally like it. What do you think?
It's a good product. The caliber of fighters across the board, it's not as good as the UFC, just in terms of talent. That's like the bottom line. But in terms of the product that you're getting on TV, I have no complaints. They had a 4-man booth. If I had one complaint, it's like get 1 or 2 commentators out of that booth. They had 4 people commentating on a fight, which is a lot, especially if you got Boss Rutan in there. But other than that, I feel like they do a good job on TV of explaining the points, of selling you on the idea that fighters are going for finishes because they want these points to move forward in this league. When they announced the format, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, kind of rolled our eyes, being like, oh man, this is not going to work. They're going to go bankrupt. But 2 events in, it's looking pretty good. And I don't know what their numbers are, but I know people inside the MMA bubble, people like us, are excited. Like and it's on a Thursday night, which is great. I have no complaints, and it looks nice on TV. I was not impressed. The Chicago theater looked like almost empty by the end. I don't know if they're selling many tickets, but it did not look well attended.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but their pacing is really good.
The pacing, yes. I'm glad you brought up the pacing. Because they don't go to commercial in between rounds, which makes so much difference.
Yeah,
to keep you invested in a fight, just to like you're not seeing a commercial every 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I really like this point system. And speaking about soccer, it's almost like soccer. How many fights is it to win the whole thing? Is it 3 fights or 4 fights?
I don't know how it works. I think they're going to get 2 fights before the playoffs, and then it's like an 8-person. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You get like a group stage where you got to accumulate points, and you go to this knockout round. It keeps the fighters active. You know, the only thing, and I get why they do it, it's just weird seeing no elbows. Like, I love elbows. I get why they're doing it, although knees, punches, kicks, they all cause cuts. I get why they're not doing the elbows. That's the only thing I don't like, although I get why they're doing it. But yeah, man, I'm really happy with this rebranding of PFL. I think it's great. I like the system. I like the structure. The pacing is great. The product looks great. They have a lot of good fighters. Some fighters we don't know about. I mean, look at Nathan Schultz, who beat Chris Wade, who is I thought one of the favorites at lightweight. Beat him bad. To me, Chris Wade looked tired, like really freaking quick. I did not expect that.
Yeah, it kind of looked like he took the fight. He didn't take it seriously, to be honest, because he was a huge favorite. I kind of got the sense that he bought into that. Or maybe we were just all along, we're overhyping Chris Wade. But yeah, I thought he was going to do well in this tournament.
2 weird things happened on this card. Aforementioned Jason High lost by guillotine choke to Efrain Escudero in a fight that he was clearly winning. No tap. I mean, the choke was in. High went to defend, and the ref stopped it. It's a bummer for High. Jason High, he pushed a ref in the UFC back in the day, got kicked out. He went on a tirade after the fight. He was throwing chairs. It sucks for him. It's a bummer.
Yeah, it really, really sucks given the structure of the PFL, because like, I don't know if he would have been a favorite, but at lightweight in the PFL, I would put him, as one of the top guys. And now he like might not even be able to make it to the playoffs or with that like $1 million prize on the line. So I definitely feel bad for him. I thought he was winning. I also think he's a very good grappler. And I feel like there's no way he was going to tap to that guillotine choke.
Agreed.
I feel bad for him. And did you see that like it was only like an hour later that the commission announced like this decision is final. Like he can't even review it now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And Efrain Escudero missed weight, so he gets no points for that win.
In Escudero's defense, I think he took the fight on like 6 days notice or something like that. But yeah, it's just 0-0, no points for anybody.
The other fight that was a wild one on that card was Robert Watley getting a win over Thiago Tavares after a blatant low blow. Tavares was given the 5 minutes. He was not able to answer the bell. He thought he actually ruptured his testicle. I guess he went to the hospital and he was cleared, but I mean, I read an article and he kind of gave his thoughts on it, and he definitely knew something was wrong. Anytime you get kicked in the nuts, cup or no cups, it doesn't feel good, but I mean, he said it was like nothing he ever felt before.
Yeah, and the crazy part here is that it's now a win for Robert Watley, which means like you could kick somebody in the nuts, and then as long as the referee thinks that you did it unintentionally, you can win.
So I'm on Sheerdog right now, and they have it listed as a no contest. Did I miss something, or did they have that wrong?
I'm pretty sure that the official result is TKO. I'm almost that's the case.
It was. I don't know if it got. No, it wouldn't get overturned that quick, because I know Thiago Tavares is going to appeal it. Yeah, I think Sherdog just has it wrong because I didn't hear anything about it getting overturned already. But they have it as a no contest.
I thought everywhere else it said TKO leg injury, which is funny. I mean,
They have it as a no contest TKO leg kick, TKO nut shot.
I'm almost positive that's what the commission ruled it, because the Illinois commission was getting all kinds of shit that's in their rules that, like, if it's deemed that you can't continue due to an unintentional foul, then you lose. I could poke you in the eyeball, right? And if the referee thinks I didn't do it intentionally, I could still win, even if you can't continue. That's essentially what happened.
What a crazy commission over there in Illinois. A couple other highlights from the card. Vinny Magalhaes got a beautiful submission in his first round match. One of the big prospects on this card, Rashid Yusupov, was 10-0 coming into this, got beat by Raheem Cleveland. That was a guy I had my eyes on coming into this. He lost. Brandon Halsey beat Shaminio Rama, former Bellator champ, taking on former World Series of Fighting champ. Sean O'Connell, fucking G, on the broadcast, and then is getting his ass whooped, comes back, scores a big TKO win over Ronnie Marks. That guy's a G. And one of the biggest stories from the card, Kayla Harrison making her MMA debut, smoked Brittany Elkin, who's actually a really good grappler. Man, she looked impressive.
Yeah, she did. The only issue moving forward with Kayla Harrison, because she was also comfortable on the mic and everything.
That's the thing, yep.
Is that I don't know who she's going to fight. Like, she's a women's lightweight. We hardly have anybody at 145, at 155.
She is thick. She is well muscled.
Yeah, she does not look like she could cut much weight. She might already cut a bunch of weight just to get to 155.
Yeah, that's the thing. Who is going to fight her? Who knows how many actual 155-pound females there are out there. So that's definitely going to be a challenge for PFL to try to bring fighters in for her to fight.
Do you know if she's under like multiple fight contract with PFL, or was that just her debut?
I believe they have her locked up. I don't think they would sign her fight to fight. I think they got her on lock, and that's going to be like their gem, kind of like Ronda Rousey was in Strikeforce.
Yeah, as long as they can find people for her. I don't see many people beating her.
She's going to get to the point where she's 3, 4, 5-0, just smoking random chicks. Everyone's going to be clamoring for that jump up in competition. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle it. PFL returns in what?
The 5th, July 5th.
July 5th with their third installment. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be breaking on that card when it happens. So let's shift gears to UFC Singapore. That happened on Saturday morning. What time did you get up? Did you watch anything live, or did you watch everything on replay?
I watched the second half of the main event live. Everything else I was asleep for.
My internal clock usually ticks around like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I was able to get up right when I actually missed the Ji Liang fight. So let's start at the top. Cowboy against Edwards. Did you have it scored for Edwards, or did you have it scored for Cowboy?
I had it for Edwards, like the judges, with the exception, like, round 3 was so close. I expected it to be a split decision one way or the other, just because the middle rounds, even, I'm trying to think, I want to say round 2 was also super close. But I think you could make an argument for Cowboy winning 3, 4, and 5, Edwards winning 1 and 2 only. Granted, when I rewatched the whole fight, I already knew the outcome, so I may have been swayed a little bit.
Live, I scored it for Cowboy. Again, that third round was really close. That was obviously the deciding round, partly because I love Cowboy. I'm a little bit biased towards him. I thought he did just enough. Obviously, I can't complain that Edwards won, but Leon Edwards, and we talked about it last week, he's very content to coast. And Cowboy's a notorious slow starter. I thought Edwards got out to a fast start, kind of rocked Cowboy in the early going. And, as I was watching it, I was like, man, if Edwards lets Cowboy back into this fight and lets him get into a rhythm, this is going to be very interesting. And that's exactly what happened. Edwards started off strong in the first 2 rounds. He was landing a lot of punches. Cowboy never found his rhythm, never found his range in the first 2 rounds. And then Edwards just seemed throughout the 3rd, 4th, and 5th to just kind of coast, picking his shots, playing very defensive. Cowboy started really moving forward. One of the most interesting points in this fight, and I've heard a lot of debate on it, was the clinch fighting. Who did you give the clinch fighting advantage to, Edwards or Cowboy?
I think Edwards was the more effective clinch fighter. Going into it, though, I thought Cowboy would chew him up in the clinch. But I think it's just like Edwards landed I want to say maybe 3, maybe it was just 2, those like elbows when he exited the clinch that I think cut Cowboy open. He did a lot of damage there.
He landed that knee in the first minute that cut Cowboy open too.
So I don't know. I thought Edwards won the clinch, which surprised me. But I also think a lot of it has to do with just Cowboy is not he's not wearing damage super well. So it kind of feels like every time he gets hit, it's maybe more impactful than it actually is.
I agree. And like Edwards won, but I think almost like the style he won in and the way he fought that fight, it almost kind of hurts him. Because after the fight, everybody's talking about how awesome, how badass Donald Cerrone is. And I think win, lose, or draw, everyone would talk about Cerrone anyways. Like I said, Edwards kind of coasted that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. Cowboy came on strong. Edwards is now on a 6-fight win streak, but gets the biggest win of his career, but it's still like he didn't go out there and starch Cowboy like Till did, and it's like, all right, yes, Till has arrived. That's the next dude. He kind of got, and it was a good fight, but it was almost like a ho-hum decision, razor-close decision. Cowboy came on strong late, and I feel like it kind of hurt Edwards because we're not like clamoring to see Edwards jump up into like that upper echelon. You know what I'm saying?
I think it took some wind out of his sails. And we talked about it before. That is kind of how he fights, but he did it in a main event stage. Yeah. He's definitely in a position kind of like Kamaru Usman where nobody is going to want to fight him, right? Because he's going to be a difficult fight for anybody. And you don't want this reputation putting on a bad fight either. Not that was a great fight. It was not a great fight in part due to Leon Edwards being like super exciting. It was just how tough Cerrone was, to be honest.
Who's next for Edwards?
I don't know. I'm looking at the rankings now. He called out Masvidal, who does not have a fight right now, and that seems to make perfect sense. Edwards is 11, Masvidal is 9. Like why not?
I think Masvidal is an interesting fight too. Masvidal is kind of like Cerrone. That guy will fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. Very tricky striker, tricky grappler. I like that. Another guy in those rankings that everybody forgets about is Ponzinibbio. That would be an interesting fight because Ponzinibbio is an all-action pressure fighter. It'd be interesting to see how Edwards deals with that. He's a patient counter striker. Yeah, I'm good with either of those two. Edwards seems like he's on the track to be a guy like Tony Ferguson or Max Holloway, where he's on a 6-fight win streak, but he's going to need to get to like 8-9 wins before he even, enters that title shot picture. That welterweight division all of a sudden got super stacked. The top of it is real clogged up. So I think he's going to need to string together a few more wins before he gets into that upper echelon of talent.
Yeah, especially because he has no like beef going on with anybody. He's not super like fascinating on the mic or anything like that. Because if you look at a lot of the other top welterweights, Till, people want to see him because he's so well spoken. Dos Anjos, former champion. Robbie Lawler, all action fighter. Usman kind of has a beef with Covington right now. Covington, obviously, interim champ. He talks his ass off. So Leon Edwards is kind of not doing himself any favors to work his way up. So yeah, if he gets like 7-8 wins in a row, I feel like then he'll finally be around there. But he's not working himself into high level fights right now.
Anyone in mind for Cerrone?
Oof. Man, I don't know.
You know who kept coming to mind, and I know they won't fight, and I got really hyped up about it before I actually thought about what team they're from, but Carlos Condit. I know they're both from Jackson's. They're obviously not going to fight, but that feels like the perfect fight for both of them at this stage of their careers.
I would not be surprised if they keep giving Cowboy like young up-and-comers.
Yeah, I don't want to see that right now. I want to see Cowboy fight somebody, an old veteran or not even on the downside, because I don't think Cowboy is over it where he can't compete with the best in the world. I still think he can, but I don't want to see him just keep getting fed to these young up-and-comers. Not right now, at least. I'd like to see him take a step back, maybe fight like an old veteran. Not an old veteran, but someone that's been around the block for a bit. No one really comes to mind. I don't know. We'll see where he goes. He's going to fight again. I wouldn't doubt it if he fought again this year, honestly.
Yeah. He didn't get knocked out. Like I said, he's not wearing damage as well as he used to, but didn't get knocked out. I don't think he has any major injuries other than maybe some cuts. So yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't fight again this year.
Agreed. Co-main event, Ovince St. Preux beat Tyson Pedro by armbar. Last week you were pretty hard on Tyson Pedro, and it looked like you were right. Kind of had a brain fart there. It looked like he hurt St. Preux. He dropped him, and then he went straight to a grappling exchange. St. Preux sweeps him, gets on top. and finished with a straight armbar. I did not expect that, especially Pedro's got some grappling chops, and I saw that setup coming from a mile away. St. Preux is definitely a big, strong dude, but not too impressed with Pedro there.
You know what I said on Twitter, and I think Ovince St. Preux grapples like a guy who learned all of his grappling off of YouTube, but somehow makes it work. You know what I mean? Like
athleticism and strength.
Yeah, but it's like he still obviously has some fundamentals and knows what he's doing. But yeah, like a straight armbar from half guard and then the Von Flue chokes. It's just kind of mismatch of submissions that he makes work somehow. It was a super short fight, but it all kind of worked out. Like Ovince St. Preux is kind of chinny. He got hurt, damn near knocked out, and then wrapped up a submission we don't see very much.
But he is so cool, calm, and collected. I mean, that guy has fought some big names. He's another guy that fights anybody, anywhere. Since 2013, if you look at, a lot of people were talking about this too after the fight, but like OSP flies under the radar. But man, look at that guy's record since he came into the UFC. He's fought a lot of fights. He's fought some big names. Man, another big win for him. He kind of kills the hype of Tyson Pedro. Didn't call anybody out after the fight. I don't really know where he stands in that division. He got the interim title shot with John Jones. And again, we talk about it all the time. Like that division only takes, 1, 2, 3 wins to get into that title picture. Back to the drawing board for Pedro. He's still young. He's an interesting cat. I think he'll get back into that St. Preux echelon of fighters pretty quickly. Who knows? They might even do. I feel like they're going to try to go for OSP Shogun again. I just feel like that's the fight. I'd rather see OSP Jimmy Manoa again, though, honestly.
Yeah, it feels like OSP only has like rematches in front of him. The guys you just named, Manoa, Shogun, even like Ozdemir, he could rematch.
That division's so shallow.
So shallow. Because I'm looking at the rankings, the top 15 now, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, you got Dominic Reyes at 11, but I don't want him. He's a bright prospect.
That's a tough fight for Reyes to jump up and fight St. Preux,
Yeah, it's a really tough fight, especially because I don't know what Reyes' ground game is like against a super tricky grappler like OSP.
Moving down the card, Jessica Eye, Jess Rose Clark. Big win for Eye. She definitely needed that. Post-fight was super cringy, I thought. I know she got a lot of flack for that, but man, I don't know. That was very cringy on the mic. But hey, that was a big win for her. She was definitely, if she lost that, I don't see how she would have kept her job. So props to her. She fought a really good fight against a really good fighter in Jess.
Yeah, actually, I think Jessica Eye at 125 is so much better. Like at 135, she seemed so... I talked about her fight IQ. I don't know if it was necessarily fight IQ or just she was like physically overwhelmed at 135, and then that would force her into making these kind of panic decisions. Whereas at 125, she just... Or maybe it's just time, maybe it's just more experience in the octagon, but she seems so much less like frantic and hurried, and she just makes smarter decisions. And she even looked like the much smaller fighter here.
Yeah, she did.
But yeah, Jessica Rose Clark is super big for that weight class. Good for Jessica Eye, who seems to be, I don't know if it's the weight change or if it's just experience, but a lot of her kind of bad decision making seems to be going away.
Yeah, definitely a big win. The main card opened with Li Jinglang beating Dache Abe, how the hell you say it, by decision. Man, the Leech, he's a beast. He looked a lot more composed in this fight, too. You kind of think when he fights, it's just going to be like a stand in the center of the cage, slugfest. Leg kicks looked excellent. Guy's tough as nails. Impressive performance for him.
Yeah, he put a fucking hurting on, I think it's Daichi Abe. The leg kicks, dude. I thought at certain points, he was going to finish him almost with leg kicks.
Yeah. And he stuck to it, too. Every time Abe switched stances, he went right to that leg. I mean, he was killing that dude's legs.
And I think we talked about it last week that the Leech, he's had a lot of fights in the UFC. He's a guy who's kind of fallen under the radar. His first fight was back in 2014 in the UFC.
Yeah, he's been around the block for a while. So yeah, just keeping him in fun fights. I don't really know where he steps up to now. Yeah, just put him in fun fights. Peter Yan, everything he was chalked up to be. Smoked Ishihara. We kind of talked about before or on last week's show, like, was Ishihara a good matchup for him? Absolutely. He played right into Jan's game. Man, that guy is a fucking monster. Striking is so smooth, so good. He's got power. Yeah, I see Jan being a serious player pretty quickly in that bantamweight division.
Absolutely agreed. Obviously power, and really what set it up was he had this great pressuring footwork. Like Ishihara was trying to kind of skirt the cage, and Jan just, that kind of like measured footwork is something you see out of a veteran or a super, super bright prospect. And I think he's a super bright prospect. So yeah, I was impressed.
Agreed. Song Yadong, another guy that to keep an eye on. He beat up Felipe Arantes throughout the whole fight. Song Yadong's young as hell too, isn't he? Like
19.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he's got the coolest fucking name out there, Song Yadong. Yes.
He's a great athlete. I also said this on Twitter that he's kind of like a much, much, much improved version of Sage Northcutt. Like he's really young, super athletic, but he seems to have a lot more like technical skill and composure when he fights.
Yeah, really put it on Arantes, who I believe retired after the fight too. So props to him on a great career. He leaves with a record of 18-10 with 1 draw, 2 no contests. Fought in the UFC since 2011. So props to him on a great career. But yeah, Song Yadong, beast. You got anything else from this Singapore card?
There was some decent moments. Jake Matthews looked really, really good, still at 170. Uluka Sasaki had a sweet back take, but otherwise it was a decent card, a good one to watch with your morning coffee on replay for me.
Right. Yeah, I watched most of the fights on replay as well. Next Friday, the Ultimate Fighter finale happens. We're going to talk about it a week early because I feel like it's not going to get the attention. It hasn't gotten the attention. Obviously, happens on Friday. We're going to talk a little bit about the state of the Ultimate Fighter, but, it's going up against 226, which is a fucking monster card. Right off the bat, have you watched any of this season, or do you just not give a shit about Tough at all at this point?
0. I've watched 0 seconds of it.
I've watched, I think, 2 episodes. And the episodes, and from what I've heard, like, they've gotten away from a lot of the drama, and it's more fighter-focused, which is good. But I think for the last number of years, Tough has just run its course. I don't care. There are different ways to, we got the Contender Series coming up, which I think is doing an excellent job. It sucks. Yeah, I haven't watched any of it. Do we even know who's in the finale yet? Like, who's the final fight?
I assume we find out next Wednesday. They usually announce it a couple days before the finale. It was different 7-8 years ago when there was just less MMA around, and now I just have so many other options to watch fights and follow fights that something like Tough is going to be the first thing to get cut. We started the show talking about PFL. Like, if I want to watch fights, I would much rather watch PFL than sit through an hour of reality TV trying to understand Stipe Miocic talk and then watch a single fight at the end.
So I'm assuming that we are at the semifinals. This article came out on June. No, we got to be. It looks like the semifinals matches were Mike Trizano versus John Gunther at 55. The other 55 match was Joe Giannetti against Alan Zuniga at 45. Tyler Diamond versus Jay Cusaniello. The other one is Brad Katona. Brad Katona's a beast versus Bryce Mitchell. And there's some really good fighters on this, but I just don't give a shit about I just don't care about Tough, and it sucks.
That's, like I said, it's just you got to cut your watching at some point, and Tough is one of the first places to go. It actually has produced, maybe not super recently, but there's talent to come out of Tough still. Fucking Robert Whittaker, one of the best fighters in the world, came out of Tough. Tony Ferguson. Like, there's still guys at the top of the sport that came out of Tough. Like Kamaru Usman, somebody who I'm super high on. I'm not going to watch the show to find this one diamond in the rough.
Yeah. Wait, when does that air? Because it looks like Mike Trizano, from what I'm looking at online, Mike Trizano is through to the final at 55. Brad Katona at 45. This article was 6 days ago.
This shows how we are in the MMA bubble, and I have no idea what's going on. Tough.
And we're way out of the loop.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever's in the final, they're going to fight, they're going to litter the card with, a bunch of other fighters from that fighting into contract. Lewis Payne and Richie Smolin is already on the card. But the main event is a really good one. Israel Adesanya is jumping way up in competition to fight Brad Tavares. I've seen a lot of mixed reactions on this. Do you think this is too early for Adesanya, or do you like to step up?
I don't think it's. I agree that it's a huge step up in competition, but it's kind of time. Adesanya's been. He's not brand new to MMA. He's been around since.
Yeah, he's 13-0.
Yeah, he's been around since 2012. So it'd be different if he. I'm trying to think of it's not like we're talking about Gokhan Saki here, who is just dipping his toes in MMA. Israel Adesanya, yes, people assume that he's like brand new to MMA because he has such a deep kickboxing background, but he's not brand new to MMA. I mean, I feel like, yeah, it's a huge step up in competition, but it's one that needs to happen pretty soon. So I don't hate the matchmaking.
I think stylistically it's a good fight too for Adesanya. Yeah. Tavares fights he doesn't fight at a crazy pace. He's a good counter striker. He kind of lays back. He has really good leg kicks. Yeah, I like the style matchup for Adesanya. Tavares is a good grappler, and I would not be surprised to see him go to that well in this fight. Because it's kind of been a mixed bag so far in what we've seen with Adesanya in his grappling. First fight, he fought Rob Wilkinson and kind of toyed Wilkinson. But then Vettori put up a good effort against him. He got him down a couple times. So, we don't really know where that middle ground is going to be. And I think Tavares is the perfect dude to really show us where Adesanya is. Who are you going with in this fight?
I think Tavares gets it done, to be honest. I do think I'm glad that you brought up, like, Tavares is a good grappler, but it's still good matchmaking because he's not a specialist, I think Tavares will be able to test Adesanya's ground game and take down defense a little bit, but Brad Tavares is not like a D1 wrestler or some sort of ADCC champion. I think the difference here, though, is just that Tavares is just a super, super smart fighter that knows how to win MMA rounds. And, Adesanya against Vettori, when he couldn't get him out of there early and he couldn't just kind of dominate on the stand-up, I don't know, he kind of took his foot off the gas a little bit. So I kind of think, especially the 5 rounds here, I kind of give the edge to Tavares over 5 rounds. Not that he has any experience. I don't even know if he has any experience in 5 rounds, but I feel like that just gives the smarter, more seasoned fighter in MMA, that is, the edge. So I like Tavares to get it done by decision here. I think Tavares will actually land a fair amount on the feet, and then put him up against the wall for long stretches of this fight. I think we're going to hear some boos in this fight.
I would not doubt that. I'm going to go Adesanya, though. He's one of those guys that has the it factor. I think he's supremely confident in himself. And like I said, I kind of like the style matchup. I think he actually stops Tavares late, maybe a 4th, 5th round.
As we're talking, I'm watching Adesanya against Vettori, on my computer right now. And yeah, I mean, he does some really exciting stuff on the feet. If Tavares, has a lapse in defense, he's definitely going to get caught with a head kick or something. But I don't know. I mean, Tavares is 12-4 in the UFC. Really flying under the radar.
Yeah, he's got a lot of fights, and he's got a granite chin, too. That guy's tough as nails.
He's not anywhere near as good of an athlete. I think Adesanya, he's not anywhere close as fast, but he does hit hard, and just the all-around skills and willingness to make it kind of a boring fight. I think he might really just try to, what they call wall install here, but that might be all he needs to do to win.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. Moving down the card, we have Alessio Di Chirico against Julian Marquez. That should be a banger. Barb Honchak, Roxanne Modafferi, our girl Roxanne, getting her rematch. We talked to her a couple weeks ago. Montana De La Rosa, Rachel Ostovich, veterans of the last season of Tough. Matt Bissett, Steven Peterson, that should be a banger. Alex Caceres. Yeah, nothing blockbuster on the card. Main event's definitely got some allure to it. But yeah, it's kind of overshadowed by 226.
They've been doing this for a few years now, right? They put on their huge 4th of July card. And I think for UFC 200, didn't they do Thursday, Friday, and Saturday? They did 3 cards in a row, I want to say.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Didn't they have the Ultimate Fighter and then a Fight Pass card and then 200, something like that, right?
Yep, I think they had the Ultimate Fighter and then
was it Alvarez
and then
Dos Anjos?
Eddie Alvarez. I remember because I won a bunch of money on that fight that I was in Mexico for a wedding, and so I just caught the results. But yeah, Eddie Alvarez knocked out RDA.
Yeah, true. Oh, really quick, so there's no chance that Tough survives this ESPN move, right? This has to be the end.
Yes, I assume so.
Contender Series is great. Did you see Antonina Shevchenko last night?
I just caught the replay this morning. She put on an ass whooping. And from what I understand, like 14 of the 15 fights so far have been stoppages.
Yeah, these guys and gals are hungry. They're really coming to make a stand, try to get that contract. I personally love it. Fights on Tuesday night, a lot of really good talent. There's really no need for tough anymore. It's tough without drama.
The sport has evolved. Like, The Ultimate Fighter came about to sell people on fighters not being like on humanizing the sport. And that doesn't really need, like, if people still can't see the human element to the sport, they're never going to, and that's fine. But yeah, I think tough has run its course. It served its purpose. It helped MMA really boom in like 2005 to 2010, and then there's just less need for it now.
Yeah, I agree. Next week, you kind of alluded to earlier in the show, you're going to be away on vacation.
Yeah, Austin, Texas, eating a bunch of barbecue and drinking a bunch of beer.
That's awesome. I really want to get to Austin. We're still going to have the show. I'm going to do it with a guest host, but I think it's fair that we talk about this really quick. And I'm just going to ask you one question. And we can go on from this forever. But DC for against Stipe, how does this fight? How do I want to word this? What does this fight do for each of their legacies if they win, if they lose?
I think for DC, he has more to gain in terms of his legacy if he wins. Not that Stipe has a lot to lose here, but I think Stipe winning, there's always going to be people saying that, oh, he beat a light heavyweight, even though, we all know Cormier's history at heavyweight. Whereas if Cormier wins, he's beaten the guy that many are calling the best UFC heavyweight ever. So I think it's huge. I think Cormier, a win for Cormier here, like, plants him firmly as like one of the top 5 best fighters of all time. For Stipe, it does, I think, less so, just because of what I said. People are going to say that, oh, he beat a light heavyweight, he didn't beat a legit heavyweight contender, yada, yada, yada. And, Stipe still has, I think, a longer future ahead of him to solidify his legacy as well.
Yeah, he does. I mean, this is definitely nearing the end for DC. DC is 39, going on 40. But man, this is a big fight. You know what? I think it does a little bit less for Stipe, but I think this is a huge matchup for him. I mean, we know DC's track record at heavyweight. He's a light heavyweight champ. I mean, that one stumbling block is John Jones. I think this does a lot for John Jones' his legacy if DC does win. Just real quick, and you don't have to go into it too much. Give me your pick.
I'm going with the underdog, DC, here. I think he is way too good of a wrestler for Stipe. Stipe is a little too slow, too flat-footed. I think he's going to get taken down. And I think Cormier is just unreal once he gets on top. I think he has the hand speed advantage on the feet. I think Stipe probably has the power advantage. I know he almost definitely has the power advantage. But Cormier rarely gets hit clean. He does a good job of rolling with punches and smothering punches with his hands. I think Cormier survives on the feet pretty well, even holds his own with faster hand speed, and is able to take Stipe down and hold him down once he gets there. So I'm going with Cormier with the upset. I think he's just a way better athlete. They've both been only knocked out once in their careers. Stipe has been rocked just as much, if not more, than Cormier. So I don't think age really has a lot to do with it. I don't think size, like Stipe is like a 242-pound heavyweight. I don't know what Cormier is going to come in at. I think maybe like 230 or something. I think it's a close fight, but I like Cormier here in the upset.
Very interesting. I'm going Stipe. I'll talk a little bit more about it next week. Real quick, just give me your pick: Holloway or Ortega.
Whew. Holloway, I guess. With the caveat that Ortega is like maybe one of the best finishers in the sport right now.
Yeah, I'm going Holloway as well. All right, so this Friday, Bellator returns with their 201st offering. It's headlined by Elimele McFarland taking on Alejandro Lara. You kind of alluded to it earlier. Bellator has I think Bellator actually has a more developed 125-pound roster than the UFC. We got Valentina Shevchenko, and then we got Nico Montano, and then a bunch of other random, fighters. I think Bellator actually has a really good crop of proven talent. Elimele McFarland is a beast, real nasty, good striker, good grappler, taking on Alejandro Lara. This should be a fun fight, very interesting fight. Good to see the ladies getting the headliner here. Let's see who else is on the card. Sayed Awad, Ryan Couture, fun fight. The guy I got my eye on, Ed Ruth, 5-0, making his welterweight debut, taking on Andy Murad, 15-2.
He's ready though, man. I think he's ready.
That's a big step up for him. They have a lot of that other homegrown talent on this card. Terrell Fortune, Joey Davis getting spots. Kerry Melendez is on the card.
Christina Williams is fighting Valerie Letourneau. A big step up competition for her.
That is a great fight. I'm pretty high on Christina Williams. I mean, she's shined in her 2 fights so far. So yeah, taking on Valerie Letourneau, former UFC title challenger. Bellator are pumping out a card with a lot of their homegrown talent. I love it.
Yeah, it's this Friday.
This Friday, indeed. Speaking of Bellator, was it last week or this past week that McDonald Mousasi was officially announced?
I think it was officially announced last week, but I could be wrong. But either way, awesome fight. Finally, like one that I think when was it Rory McDonald? One of the two called for it, and we talked about it on the show, being like, "Oh, I hope that happens. I hope that happens." And then fucking Bellator actually getting it done.
It makes sense. I mean, the divisions aren't as filled out as the UFC's. I mean, these guys are 2 of the best in the world. And this might be the biggest fight in Bellator history. Honestly, champion versus champion. You can conceivably say that Bellator's 170 and 185 pound champions are better fighters than the UFC's. Like, they can conceivably beat the UFC's champs. And for the first time in a while, they're able to say that. Excellent fight. I'm all in on it. They also announced that they're going to be doing a welterweight tournament, which is freaking awesome. I've heard that MVP is going to be in it. Thank God they're finally throwing him in with some savages. You got to think Koreshkov, Lima's going to be in it, maybe Daly, Fitch. It's going to be real interesting. They have a nice 170-pound division.
Yeah, I think right now is a great time we started off the show talking about PFL. Now we're talking about Bellator putting together another tournament. It's a great time to be kind of the B league in MMA. They're really making a run. Maybe not a close run at the UFC. UFC is still king far and away, but Bellator and PFL doing the right things. I hope Bellator schedules this welterweight tournament like within a single year. You know, we've talked about
don't draw it out.
We've talked about their heavyweight tournament gets all this excitement, and then the tournament matches
the pacing is
3-4 months apart, so you lose all this steam. You know, Bellator getting back into tournament business, doing the right things. I think.
Yo, please, Bellator, do not fuck this up. First round MVP versus Daly. Do not fuck this up. Come on.
And think of how much, if they do that in the first round, it creates all this hype around the tournament. You get these eyeballs on that first round matchup for, the commentators, everybody to talk about the tournament, so that whoever watches that fight is then invested in the rest of the tournament, and then just schedule it quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they go through this, and you can't bank on these guys like matching up in the second round. That is a Bellator fight with buzz. You have to do it.
Yeah, you can't count on either of those guys to perform as you expect.
Agreed, man. Before we wrap this up, Lyota Machida signed with Bellator. Unexpected. I didn't even know his contract was up. 2 wins in a row. That was kind of weird. What do you think about this signing? Like, obviously it makes sense for Bellator, but Machida's 40 years old. How many fights do you think he has left? Is this just for namesake? Kind of that Legends fights. What do you think about Machida jumping ship to Bellator?
I mean, it makes sense for him. I think he's probably got 3 fights left, maybe something like that. I don't know how long the contract is for, but this is kind of Bellator's business right now. They also announced Rampage Vanderlei 4. So this just feels like Bellator's business model to a degree. Is we've talked about the good fights that they're putting on and the incredible fights they're putting on, but they're also gonna top a lot of their cards with these like legends. I don't know who Machida is gonna fight in Bellator, but I think he probably has a handful of fights left in him.
Yeah, agreed. Josh Barnett left the UFC. He was granted his release. Interesting thing. I mean, he had no problems with the UFC. He stated problems with USADA. He doesn't trust them. They took a year out of his career, and a year that he said was very valuable to him. Josh Barnett's not getting any younger. He's how old now? He's like 39, 40, isn't he?
He's probably at least 40. He's been fighting in the UFC since like before the Dark Ages.
So I got to imagine Bellator is going to scoop him up. I know he wants to fight around the world. There's some fights he still wants. I know it's 2018, but I'd still love to see that Fedor Barnett fight that we never got in Affliction from 2008, I believe.
Dude, Josh Barnett might just do pro wrestling. Wouldn't be surprised if he just does that.
Yeah, I'd still like to see it. He wants to do that. Yeah, I mean, he's got ties to New Japan Wrestling. He's an announcer over there. So I think this frees him up to take a couple more fights. I think it frees him up to maybe jump back into pro wrestling a bit. Props to him. I've always been a Barnett fan. I hope he can end his career on a high note and be happy with it. We miss anything? Anything else going on?
I think that's it. I'm sad I'll be missing out next week to break down 226 because that is a phenomenal card, but look forward to it.
Yeah, that is a great card. July as a whole, we got a lot of big things coming up, so I'm excited about that. Until next week, enjoy the fights this weekend, and we will talk to you all soon.